The name's Nation. Videogame Nation.
Feeling this gaming sensation. Such power. Videogame Nation. Videogame Nation. Dan and John and Eva and these guys.
Psychopathic sex pest James Bond has spent over 60 years gracing the worlds of literature, radio, cinema and bank holiday TV with his irresistible brand of suaveness and thuggery. But did you know that he's also spent over 3 decades in secret service to gaming?
I mean, yes, most of his digital escapades have been as useful as Scaramanga's third nipple, and there was that time when Sean Connery shacked up with Natasha Bedingfield for some reason, but he's remained an enduring figure in the medium nonetheless, with more games than Bond's had hot women.
It's all got off to an incredibly surreal start with 1983's 007 James Bond, which condensed the events of The Spy Who Loved Me, Moonraker, Diamonds Are Forever and For Your Eyes Only into a single manic side-scrolling shooter.
The game plays fast and loose with physics, scale, and reality itself, as James battles flying diamonds, gigantic divers, and mutant jellyfish from the safety of his transforming motor.
I was too busy learning how to use a toilet properly to have played it at the time, but luckily for me, it was only the first of many terrible Bond games.
My first brush with a tuxedo-clad cad was back in 1990, when I was the proud recipient of the ZX Spectrum Plus 2 James Bond 007 Action Pack. As if the built-in tape deck wasn't thrilling enough, it came bundled with a Magnum light phaser, the best name for the worst light gun ever, and a trio of diabolical Bond games, including The Living Daylights, the computer game.
Trust me when I say that a laser between the legs would have been more entertaining. Here's hoping that our experts had a more positive introduction to Digibond.
The first Bond game I ever played was probably GoldenEye, but I also played a game at the same time called James Bond 007 on the Game Boy. It was like a James Bond game that kind of looked and felt like a Zelda game. I don't remember if it was any good, I just remember that it exists.
GoldenEye 007 N64 Bush. Wicked game. Best game. It was a licensed game that was good. You'd be crawling on your hands and knees in a tuxedo in air vents, shooting people in toilets.
Much like his cinematic career, Bond's gaming CV is a real mixed bag, with a hit-to-miss ratio to rival the average gun-toting henchman.
British publisher Domark held the license hostage for nearly a decade, rolling out clunker after clunker, and culminated in 1993 with James Bond 007 The Duel. This Sega system-exclusive action platformer marks the last appearance of Timothy Dalton as Bond. At least, I think that's supposed to be Timothy Dalton. Fortunately, things picked up for our short-change spy in 1994, when Rare and Nintendo nabbed the rights to GoldenEye.
The rest, as they say, is history.
GoldenEye 64 didn't just prove that you could make a worthwhile Bond game, it also demonstrated that first-person shooters could work on a console, popularized skill-based unlocks over cheat codes, and introduced the concept of scaling the volume and complexity of mission objectives in line with the difficulty level.
Sadly, it wasn't enough to convince Nintendo to keep licensing Bond movies, but the game's DNA carried through to other classic FPSs like Perfect Dark and the Time Splitters series.
Nintendo did, however, publish the peculiarly Zelda-like James Bond 007 for the Game Boy before relinquishing the rights to EA, who promptly picked up where Domark left off with janky adaptations of Tomorrow Never Dies and The World Is Not Enough, and the appalling 007 Racing.
Just as it seemed that Bond had been condemned to a slow death by diminishing returns, he was rescued by a string of decent games based on original stories.
Agent Under Fire, Nightfire, and Everything or Nothing all folded driving sections into the mix for a more authentic Bond experience, just stopping short of including a martini-guzzling minigame.
It all went a bit off the rails again after that, though, starting somewhat ironically with GoldenEye Rogue Agents in 2004 and ending with GoldenEye 007 in 2010. In fact, aside from GoldenEye, which I now never want to say again, no Bond movie has received a worthy gaming tie-in. So which one should be first in line to change that?
I know a lot of people are getting sick of remastered re-releases, but I just want GoldenEye re-released. I just want that again. I know we keep hearing things about licenses and blah, 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 but if everybody involved could just agree to sell it, all of them would make a fortune.
Now, I know there's been a GoldenEye game, but there's not been a game of the Tina Turner music video for GoldenEye, which is a brilliant music video and a brilliant song, or Casino Royale. Either or.
I think it should be Skyfall, because obviously the end game bit, when they're in the big castle and there's waves of guys and secret passageways, but then also remember the bit on the Chinese island that's completely deserted. Now imagine going there and having no weapons and having to stealth kill a load of baddies. That would be cool.
It's been 3 years since Bond last stunk up our screens in the awful 007 Legends, and with Activision mercifully relinquishing the license soon after, the opportunity for someone to step in and make amends is there for the taking.
Could this be the perfect franchise for Rocksteady Studios following the end of the Batman Arkham trilogy? Or perhaps Telltale Games could use him as the basis for their next episodic adventure? At the very least, there's a wealth of material there for a Lego game or 12. Whoever dares to pick up the poisoned Walther PPK next, it's almost inevitable that James Bond will return. Let's just hope that it's worth the wait.